Hi, good morning and happy Sunday. Welcome to CSL Leesburg. Our theme for this year is 2020 Spiritual Vision, and our theme for this month is Inclusion in Action. Our talk for today is Who Are We? Right now, let us open our sacred space together, setting our intention for our service and bringing our awareness of our unity and oneness, which is represented by one lit candle. Let us close our eyes now as we bless this time together. Together, let us recognize the divine presence that moves within all things. And know that this presence of love expresses as each of us in unique and beautiful ways. I know that we are blessed by our time together and that we are each renewed in our remembrance of love, peace, wholeness, and connection. I give thanks to everyone in attendance and for everyone who made our service possible today. May the energy of love that is generated here bless us all abundantly. And so it is. Please feel free to post or prepare to share your joys and celebrations and prayer concerns later on in our service. And join us for pearls after our service in our Google Meet. At this time, we will join in meditation led by Reverend Sunday.
Thank you, Tamara. Thank you for that wonderful opening and starting us out. And we're going to spend about 10 minutes in a guided meditation practice. And today I'm wanting to help us focus on that inner experience. And if you've been doing or you're part of our Unified Mindfulness study practice group, this will be familiar to you. If you're not, that's totally okay. I believe you can follow along with the instructions and know that you can't do it wrong. So if you'd like to just assume a posture, sometimes that means straightening up and just settling in and allowing your spine to be alert but relaxed as well. You can relax the muscles that aren't keeping you upright, or if you find a comfortable position, whatever that is, just allow yourself to become aware of your posture, and then taking a nice deep breath in and breathe down. And as you do that, just allow yourself to relax a little bit more. That might be the dropping of the shoulders, could be the relaxing of the jaw, might be just noticing that with every out breath, there's just a little bit of relaxation, a letting go. And so today for our practice, we're going to focus on our inner sensory experiences. And so we're going to start by just focusing on the emotional space within our physical body. And if you're don't know quite what that is, you might just notice that along the center line of our body is where we might feel emotion. So if you're feeling joy or excitement or sadness, just notice if you're feeling any emotions. And then how do you know you're feeling that emotion? Where does it show up in your body? And again, it's often along the midline of your body. So it could be behind your eyes or in your throat or shoulders or heart space or solar plexus, just along that midline. And so we're just going to spend a few minutes really focusing, concentrating, bringing our concentration back to that feeling nature, emotional feeling nature in our body. And there's nothing to do with it other than just notice it, note it, be curious about it, and not have any judgment, just noticing the texture of it, where it is, the space where it is. If you are familiar with using labels to note and focus on that, it would just be feel. So just feel. we're just going to relax our focus again and take our attention to our inner voice. What do we hear inside our head? It could be your voice, it could be a voice of another person, but when you have that self-talk, where is it? You might note where it is in your body. Usually it's somewhere between the ears and the head. Just notice that now. Where do you hear that inner talk? And then we're going to once again focus, concentrate on that. Let any other sensory experiences go to the background. So if you're still feeling emotion in your body or you're hearing noises in the outer room, just note it, but go back to that inner voice. And if you're not hearing anything at the moment, really just enjoy that relaxed state. And if you're using labels, you would use a label here. And this practice is also about having equanimity, which just means that there's no judgment or commentary. So if the inner voice is saying something that feels judgmental or you're feeling judgmental about it, just kind of let that go. You don't have to have a commentary of it. Just how are you hearing it? Where does it show up in your body? And now just let that focus go and bring your focus to your inner visual world. If your eyes are closed, that could be look like a screen right behind your eyelids, right in front of your eyes. And this is where we see images when we think. So if I say, think of a banana, you might see an image on your visual screen of a banana. If you don't, that's okay too. It's not about doing it right or wrong. It's just noticing how it shows up. What's the shape? Is it active? Is it still? Meditation, this is called extending or learning how to understand our sensory experiences, having clarity about our sensory experiences. And once again, if you're using a label, if you know what that is, you would just use see. Now let us just, for the last few minutes of this meditation, to just open up, and you can choose either your inner visual screen to focus on, your inner hearing, or your physical emotional body, and just allow your attention to go wherever that is, where you're curious, where it might be a place of interest for you. And you can just keep going back to that same experience, or let your awareness drift to another aspect of this focus of your inner experience, your sensory experience. Good. So let's just take 1 minute to focus once again into the inner sensory feeling experience of just connecting with a sense of unconditional love. We've done this before in our practice, where you might think of a beloved person or a pet or an experience where you just felt really unconditional love, and just find that within your body. Sometimes, often within the heart space. They could be other places as well, and just allow that feel good emotion to expand into your whole physical body. And as you do this, in whatever way feels right, generate that emotion out into your space. Might notice other people that are living in your home or wherever you are in your space. Extend it beyond the room you're in. Extend it beyond your home and allow that unconditional love, that loving energy to radiate out through your neighborhood, your town, state. Let's take a moment to send that love and energy enveloping our nation's capital if you're in the United States or wherever you might be. And then expand that around the world and just visualize the whole globe surrounded in this light and love of unconditional love. And if there's words you want to use, you can use words. May we be happy. May we be safe. May there be love and kindness. Whatever affirmation you might have, you can say that now. You can choose to say it out loud or to yourself. And then let us just come back into the room and notice how you might be feeling after this extended time of practice together. And just want to allow yourself to maybe use some of this practice in a kind of a background way as we go about our time together and in our service and beyond. And just as you choose to come back and open your eyes, we'll take a nice deep breath. And thank you. Thank you for doing that practice together. So today we're continuing our discussion around our theme for August, which is inclusion in action. And today we're talking about who are we? Who are we? And if you've been on a spiritual path, you might have at one time or another asked that question of yourself of who am I? Right? Which can be a very powerful question to ponder. It can be one that can gain new insight over and over again, and it's a very legitimate spiritual practice. Ram Dass talks about this practice that he learned from his teacher Ramana Maharshi, and he quotes him by saying, look, it's all very simple, everybody, just ask who am I. And then Ram Dass says, and then for the next 45 years, all he did was go around and tell everyone how simple it was. So he said that all you keep doing is this self-inquiry, which is called Vichara Atman. Who am I? You keep saying this over and over. Who am I? Who am I? And Ram Dass talks about how at some point you let go of all the physical experience and it becomes kind of this really sweet, energetic experience of consciousness, of oneness. So it can be very powerful. Some of the ways that it can be done is to talk about, recognizing I have a body, but I'm not my body. I'm something beyond that. I have a thought, but I'm not my thought. And again, that can be a very powerful experience to bring you to this sense of oneness and consciousness. And that's a powerful practice, but that's not what we're talking about today. So as I've evolved my thinking and learned more about, what we know about neurobiology, what we know about psychology, about how trauma works in the body, about the effects of our subconscious mind on our beliefs and our actions, I've realized that what I really want to do, not just attain that moment of oneness with all, but to know how to bring that back to this divine experience of being human, to being in this body that God is this body. It's not that I'm something outside of it. The divine is expressing as this physical makeup of who I am and of who you are. So it becomes not a either or experience, but a both and experience. And so this is kind of the idea that the spiritual practitioner might be up in a monastery, a monk that's, just spending this time and centering and getting to that place of enlightenment. And yet, oftentimes we need to come down the mountain and into the marketplace and into the real world. And this is kind of the topic that we're talking about, inclusion in action. It's about being in action, that it's not just about these moments of enlightenment or oneness or non-duality. It's how do we then move that experience out in the world. And in Buddhism, there's the person of the bodhisattva. Bodhisattva is a person who has attained enlightenment, but has chosen to stay and walk on this earth until everybody else is enlightened. And I don't even know if that's the idea, to we all are enlightened or ascend, but that we all have that enlightened experience expressing as these physical experiences. That it's a more of a grounded spirituality. Jeff Brown talks about this idea of grounded spirituality. And I was in a workshop with Tracy Brown, who's a CSL practitioner. She's a diversity inclusion trainer and teacher. And she was sharing this process of how we change, how we move from unconscious bias and liken it to our tools of how we teach that. And so as we're looking at who we are, this is the practice to find how did we develop into who we are as individuals and as a culture, individually and collectively. And it's really powerful for us to do this. And so she talks about this process of moving from unknowing to unlearning to learning, and then to practice, to move out in the world. And when she was talking about this, about how we can use our teachings of this, I realized that, we often that's not what we do in our teaching. We say we can go from having an idea, we plant it in the soil, and voila, it just grows. When in reality, we all know that you have to tend your garden, right? You have to cultivate the soil, you have to pull the unwanted weeds, and that takes some work, and sometimes that takes some discovery. So we have to go from this, when we state what it is that we want, it's a certain unknowing, that we don't know what we don't know. And then what we don't know shows up, and we have to unlearn that. This is what we've talked about with regard to a mental equivalent. We might have an idea of what love is based on a challenging relationship with our parents. We might not even realize that we have an idea that love is chaotic or painful, or we might not have an understanding. We think we might understand what abundance is, but if we've only experienced lack and limitation or struggle, then we have to unlearn that. We have to realize that that's going on behind the scenes, and we have to unlearn it. And then we have to have new learning. So this is what we're seeing right in our world today, that we're finding out there's a whole heck of a lot of things that we didn't know. And now we're getting to unlearn it, and it's kind of painful. Jeff Brown, in his book Grounded Spirituality, says this. He says, our universe and our interwoven lives are much more intricate than we think. Having said that, the idea that there is an interface between our thoughts and a responsive universe is a vast improvement over the belief that we are alone down here, that no one is ever listening. That's one of the beautiful things about our teaching, right? Is that we're taught that we have some agency in what happens to us in the world, and how we can create. But Jeff Brown goes on and says, I'm sorry, I lost my place there. The belief that we are alone down here, that no one is listening. And so this was the hopeless perspective, he said, that his mother carried, and it didn't serve her. And he said the universe is a vital living organism. There are unseen levels of interconnectedness. We humans are a brilliantly complex network of pulses and charges that transmit signals across the cosmos, no doubt. And the cosmos responds to us. But this is quite a different reality than merely visualizing and thinking it into being. It is simple, it's seldom as simple as following this approach to transformation. It's the understanding that yes, we have so much power and so much ability to move forward and to change our reality and our consciousness. And yet, because we're so interconnected, because there is this unconscious understanding that these biases that lead us, that we're all a part of, it's not that simple. We have to do this work of unlearning, of waking up to what we don't know, the unlearning of those belief systems, and then learning new, replacing that, new ways of replacing that. So, have you ever heard that expression, be careful what you pray for? We probably all experience it. And I've never really been fond of that saying, because I think it kind of can create fear and superstition. And then we like, oh no, if I want to change my life, I get fearful about it. And we know that once we set an intention for something, it has to change. Our lives have to change, and that might create disruption in our lives before we get the answer that we're looking for. If we're praying for a new job, it might be painful to let go of the old job, the comfort of the no. Have you ever moved? You set an intention to physically move, and everything's in this nice little place, but then you're going to move, and we have to clear out everything. We have to pack. We have to look in all the rooms and all the closets. We have to get rid of stuff, and it gets messy and it gets chaotic. And no matter how hard we plan, sometimes we still can't find a coffee pot in the the box when we get the new house, and we thought we labeled really well. so and even if we do plan it well, there's still newness to it. We still have to find new places for things. We have to understand the new neighborhood, and so there's this idea of we set this intention, and there's this unlearning, and this kind of moving through and figuring and getting rid of stuff, and then moving into a new space where then we're ready to learn again and create a new normal and a new perspective. And so, Richard Rohr calls this the universal pattern. He says, it seems quite clear that we grow by passing beyond some perfect order through an often painful and seemingly unnecessary disorder to an enlightened reorder or resurrection. This is the universal pattern that connects us and solidifies our relationship with everything around us. So this question that we are having of who are we involves moving from a place of unknowing to then unlearning what we now realize we know, to learning, and then to practice to create something new. And one of the greatest examples of this is that we've had this beautiful, powerful vision in Centers for Spiritual Living called, to create a world that works for everyone, to create a world that works for all. That's our vision. We've planted that seed for many, many years. So what's happening right now? So much of us are waking up to the unknowing that our world, that it's not working. It's not working for everybody. And we didn't know that. We didn't know it. Many didn't know it. Quite a few did. But on the masses, there was this awakening to the systemic racism, to our unconscious bias, about how the world is not working for everyone, how our collective unconscious bias affect people. And so this question, who we are, brings us to this awareness of this pain that's caused by the cloud of unknowing that reveals this painful, beginning of our nation, the treatment of indigenous people, the reality of slavery, of how we've perpetuated stories that keep us from knowing this real pain. We've been, especially white folks, have been comforted in a way by not knowing, that the system has been set up for us not to know the pain. And so as we look at this process, it's that we can't go right from unknowing to complete perfectness. We have to move from this unknowing to this unlearning, and understanding individually and collectively that it's important for us to confront these hidden beliefs and these biases and these stories. Last week I shared with you a story of my own unconscious bias about the janitor that I had when I was a little girl in our school, Jake. And, I felt a lot of shame about sharing that, and I was like, of course, as an adult, I know that he was a whole person and he had all kinds of things. But the story that was told to me when I was a little girl, the system that I was in, gave me this unconscious bias. And it wasn't until I woke up to that, I didn't even know that I had that unconscious bias in me. And so I have to go through that unlearning. I have to realize that that unconscious bias created beliefs and opinions and reactions that I didn't even know. I don't know how many of you have taken the implicit bias test that Harvard has, and that's a wonderful way. It's a pretty simple test, but it kind of um, measures your reactions to certain words based on, and there's one for race, there's one for sexism, of disability, of all kinds of different ways. And so when we take that test, I've taken it several times now. It's so interesting to see where that unconscious bias might still live in us. And unconscious bias is a very strong thing in our world, and it creates a lot of pain and a lot of harm. One recently that our one of our members, Larry, shared with us was the impact of beliefs in the healthcare industry that impact the medical care for Black people. And there's he shared an article called How We Fail Black Patients and Pain from the AAMC. And it just says that half of white medical trainees believe such myths as Black people have thicker skin or less sensitive nerve endings than white people. An expert looks at how this false notion and hidden bias fuels inadequate treatment for minority pain. They say these are some of the things that they think. Black people's nerve endings are less sensitive than white people's. Black people's skin is thicker than white people. Black people's blood coagulates more quickly than white people's. These disturbing beliefs are not long forgotten 19th century relics. They are notions harbored by far too many medical students and residents as recently as 2016. In fact, half of the trainees surveyed held one or more such false beliefs, according to the study published in the Proceedings of the National Academies of Science. We can find it shocking that 40% of first and second year med students endorse the belief that Black people's skin is thicker than white people. What's more, false ideas about Black people's experience of pain can lead to worrisome treatment disparities. In a 2016 study, for example, trainees who believe that Black people are not as sensitive to pain as white people were less likely to treat Black people's pain appropriately. They go on and say that racial and ethnic disparities in pain treatment are not intentional misdeeds for the most part. Healthcare providers do not decide that some groups deserve pain relief while others should suffer. Instead, inequities are products of complex influence, including implicit biases that care providers don't even know they have. And that's not just happening for medical workers, it's happening for all of us. We all have unconscious bias, whether it's about age or gender or sexual orientation or class or physical abilities, or along with race, that create unconscious bias within us. So when we ask this question, who are we have to do that work of looking at how did we become who we are? How are our beliefs the way they are? We have to open ourselves up to be able to explore these unconscious biases in us. And that's what's so powerful about our teachings, is that we do have these tools to be able to look to discover what it is that we don't know, and be able to move through the training of our thought, to looking at new things, to being able to open and expand ourselves to new ways of learning and new loves of being. And through our spiritual practice, this can happen. So there's three ways that I want to just leave you with regard to, if you're interested in really asking this question of who are we, who am I? The first is education, that, the books, the classes, the discussions, videos. But there's all kinds of places now that we can look at how we might have an unconscious and implicit bias within us, which brings us to self-awareness. That, again, this self-awareness of what it is that we don't know, what we have to unlearn, what we might then need to learn is part of changing the mental equivalent so that we have a new experience. We have a new unconscious bias that is powerful and good, that our unconscious bias is that everybody's valuable, everybody's perfect just that they are, that there's beauty and diversity, that we all deserve, fair treatment and proper medical care and opportunity. So Kat Colella Graham says, creating a culture of inclusion starts with creating a culture of awareness. She says, I liken a self-awareness strategy to having a full-length mirror. Keep checking yourself in that mirror because the success of inclusion depends on the authenticity of this self-awareness, of your leadership in this self-awareness. We just finished this book study with our ministers, and I know several of you are in our book study for our members and our practitioners. And we had a final meeting with the ministers this last week, and I was struck by the honest sharing about how they didn't even know that they needed this, that they thought they were already an ally, that they had no idea of how centered they were on the white experience, how they've, didn't even realize how much it lived in them. And that's that first step of the self-awareness and not thinking that you're an exception to this. We all have implicit bias. We all can be served by asking this, who are we as individuals? Who are we collectively? And then the last thing is to expand our social awareness. We have to be able to know how to navigate and be with and love and have relationships with people who are unlike us, who are different than us. And we've, over the years, the last 50 years or so, that's become less and less viable. There's a book by Robert Putnam called Bowling Alone. He talks about the collapse and revival of American community. And he talks about how it is that we have, we belong to fewer organizations that meet. We know our neighbors less. We meet friends less frequently. And this is, pre-pandemic, but, also during pandemic, we socialize with our families less often. He said, where he got this name, we even bowl alone. The more Americans are bowling than ever before, but they're not bowling in leagues, not bowling together, And so, Dr. David Alexander says, we've, especially on our social media, we've replaced conversation with positionality. It's not about having a conversation. It's about stating our position and then creating that little bubble with everybody else that agrees with us. And I had this experience this last week with this that I thought it was so interesting to me. I have a friend on Facebook who is a friend of mine in real life, who's somebody that I've known for a long, long time. And she posted something that I, in my, understanding of implicit bias and there was a racial tint to it that I didn't think that she saw, because she considers herself an advocate and an ally. And so I thought, of all the people in the world I could share this new insightful information with her, that she would be open to it. Well, you might guess what happened. I lovingly shared my insight and wisdom about how that meme might not be the best and, greatest thing to be sharing because it could be hurtful. And she wrote back in like 1 second. She didn't even take time to let it sink in, and just told me she didn't hear what I wanted to say. If I wanted to give my opinion, share it on my own page. She don't want it. And then she told me I was being preachy and teachy. So I'm like, okay, I'm guilty of that. I'm a preacher and I'm a teacher. I'm not going to be guilty of that. But it struck me that there was no room, right? And there was no room for a complex conversation, a deeper conversation, that it was just, I just want my comfort zone. And I'm guilty of that too. I think we all are. I don't like it when people, challenge my ideas and my thoughts. And I think that's one of the things that we can, that a part of this process is to be able to be open and curious when someone does challenge us, especially if it's somebody that we've developed a relationship with. And again, that doesn't mean that we have to be friends with overt racist or mean people. But in the majority, people have ideas and thoughts that if we understood, we might be able to come to more of a common ground in our work. And so this uh, expanding our social awareness, again, as I mentioned last week, read books by people who don't look like you, or if you're tired of reading books about people who don't look like you because you're not a white person, you also can read people that you may not have ever, other cultures and other countries and other races, and explore that more, and find those times to connect. With the some of the things that have been the most challenging with regard to our cultural connection have been garages and washing machines, because we used to be, you would pull up to your car, you'd be in their front yard, you would see your neighbors all pulling up, you'd have conversations, but now we drive into our garage, we close it, and we don't see anybody ever again when we're in our house. And then washing machines and dryers, the idea of the cliche of gossiping over the back fence was because people were out in their backyards putting up clothes on the clothesline and talking to each other as they did that and having that connection. And so some of these things that we see as conveniences are also ways to create division. And the fact that we can drive now many miles away, we don't have to develop relationships with mechanics or doctors or people that we might not agree with. We can just go someplace else. So this idea of being able to develop these relationships, develop these connections, develop our social awareness is how we can heal and change our implicit bias. So I want to end with this, coming back around to our teachings, to what it is that we teach. And we know that we teach that each person is a divine expression of God, that we each are emanation of this divine, that we're each unique. And at the same time, we're unified. We're unified through our experiences, through our identities, through the mere fact that we're living, that we're all alive. We have this commonality. And that when we're clear on who we are, what our gifts are, what our experiences are, what our identities are, we are more fully able to love and experience the gifts of others around us as well. And Howard Thurman said this. He said, "There is something in every one of you that waits and listens for the sound of the genuine in yourself. It is the only true guide you will ever have. And if you cannot hear it, you will all of your life spend your days on the ends of the strings that somebody else pulls." And that's what's happening when we allow unconscious bias to lead us, to not go within and discover who it is that we truly are. What values is it that we do want to express? What are the stories that we want to tell? And so this is the idea of inclusion in action in our lives and who we are. Let's take that into prayer right now. And if you've shared in the chat, if you have a prayer request, I'm happy to include that. And if there's, I don't get to see Facebook, and so if there's any prayer requests on Facebook, we'll put those in our chat. So let's just close our eyes. And let us recognize that divine presence that moves through all things. Let us recognize first and foremost this idea of who I am is an expression of the one, is an expression of this unique and beautiful, powerful, loving energy and essence that is right now in every moment moving in throughout each of us in the most beautiful, perfect, and powerful way. So it's from this place of understanding that I'm unified with this divine presence that I speak this word, that I know that my word is power. And I know that in this moment, we each have a role to play to become aware of what it is that we do not know, to then unlearn that which we now know, to move into learning new ways of being, to learning new ways of connecting, to learning of more powerful and fulfilled and dynamic experiences in our communities with each other and with our social media and in all the ways that we communicate, that we can be in a place of love and acceptance and still stand in the truth of who we are, still hold our values to be an example and expression of love and freedom and caring in the world. And so this is what I know to be true for each of us as we go about and ask this question: who am I? Who are we? Who are we collectively, individually? And how is it that I can transform what I don't know into something that I know that is powerful and beautiful and good? We take a moment now to just feel into the reality of, in the United States, there's 162,000 people who have died of COVID. And I don't know the number worldwide, but it is a large number. And so let us just take a moment to acknowledge those who are directly affected. Several of us that can hear the sound of my voice have known people who have died or who have been affected by this pandemic. So we just honor their lives, and we honor and send love to their families and friends. Let us know that all those affected by this pandemic are lifted up by love, that are lifted up in support and in ways that they may not ever have known that was available to them, that there is sources of support and love and guidance and care as they move through this new reality. And we bless all those lives that have been lost, knowing that they are an infinite expression of God, whether they're in physical form or not, and blessing them on their new journey forward. I'm so grateful for this opportunity to speak this truth, to know it, to bless all of us and claim and know that there is resolution, there is a solution for this pandemic, that we move back into health and wholeness and connection in our lives beyond this moment right now. And for this, I'm so grateful. So I just let it go. I let it be. It is done. And so it is. And so Dan and Aaron are going to sing a song for us. We have a great song from them. And so Charlene's going to join that, going to share that with us.
2, 3, 4. Sometimes it excluded me, and I never had to wait again for my good. I opened my eyes, much to my surprise, I never had to wait again for my good. Once upon a time, I tramped the world over, chasing that innocent outer score. Near the end, I trade up my desires in a never-ending drive for something more. And now I find I can have it all the time, and I never had to wait again for my good. Despite my greed, I got everything I need, and I never have to wait again for my good. It always seemed a bit beyond me, one step ahead and out of reach. Whoa, 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 an empty hole I couldn't fill until I stopped looking out and faced my questions in. And now I find I can have it all the time, and I never have to wait again
Thank you so much, Dan and Erin. I love that background. Beautiful. Beautiful. All right, so it's our time of acknowledging our good. And if you are so inclined to share some of your good with us, we have a couple of ways that you can do that. We appreciate the support that we receive as we continue to do this work online. So there's all kinds of ways you can donate by texting the amount to the phone number there on the screen. With Cash App, you can mail it, or you can use PayPal. You can go to our website, cslleesburg.org, and click on donate there. There's all kinds of ways. So let's say this affirmation together. The presence of spirit within me blesses everyone I meet, tends to heal everything I touch, brings gladness into the life of everyone I contact. Therefore, I am a blessing to myself, to humankind, and to the day in which I live. And so it is. And so we just have a few announcements. We have our weekly offerings, and we thought it would be fun if we maybe had someone who's been attending our dream study and our mindfulness practice going to share about that. And I think Erin has said that she'd be happy to share with us what her experience testify for us, Erin.
All righty, here I am. I want to talk about the unified mindfulness. I've tried for, if some of you know already, for like 30 years, I've tried to find a meditation practice that would stick, that would really work for me, that I felt like was really mine. And I think I finally found it. And I would have to say that the thing about the unified mindfulness is it just simplifies and demystifies this whole concept of, you have to get into this enlightened place where no thoughts intrude. And instead it uses all of that kind of daily earthly intrusion, and then you can turn it to your own uses to get clarity, sensory clarity, emotional clarity. It's really been wonderful for me. And I have had already in just a few weeks, I don't know even long, I've been doing it, 5 weeks or something? And I haven't even taken the class yet. I've had leaps, is the only way I can describe it. And so, every day I come away feeling calmer physically and emotionally when I do my little 10 minutes. So it's really great stuff.
Right, wonderful, Erin. And then you also go to the dream study too, right?
Yes. The dream study I love because, well, let's face it, it's a fabulous group. I love everybody in the dream study. They're just the best. And I've been a dreamer. I've been a dream recorder for also as long as I can remember. And it's been really helpful to get all these other enlightened perspectives based out of our principles as to what it might mean or what it might suggest. It's really helpful. And I've seen everybody else have that experience too. So, and it's just fun. It's interesting. So that's the thing. This is more than just the topic we're dealing with. Same with the book group. It's just a wonderful, wonderful stuff.
Great, wonderful. Thank you, Erin. And so if you would like to join in, you don't have to have been coming. You can drop in anytime. The Dream Study is on Tuesdays at 9 a.m. with our lovely Charlene Banks. And I am leading the Unified Mindfulness practice on Thursdays at 9, and those are Eastern times. So if you want to come join us, absolutely come join us for those experiences. All right, so that is it for our formal service. And the book study started already, so I think it's closed right now, Char. So, but we are going to get together for our pearls, which is just our sharing after this recording. So if you're not in our Google Meet room, you can go to our website, cslleesburg.org, and click on the Google Meet and come join us and talk with us. And we're going to share, what we're learning and growing with, and have some community time. So let us just end our service by closing your eyes for a moment. Place your hand over your heart, and you can just say out loud, I am love. And open your eyes, look around. If you see somebody on your screen, you say you are love, or it could be somebody in your house or someone you're thinking of, you are love. And let's just bring our hands up and say it's all love. Send some love sprinkles to you. Have a really beautiful week, and hopefully we'll see you during the week, or if not, maybe next Sunday.